Welcome back, demigods, monsters, and gods alike, to the Olympus Report. Percy Jackson premiered with not only one, but 2 episodes. Here's everything you might have missed from Percy Jackson Episode 2, I Become Supreme Lord of the Bathroom. Now, if Episode 1 felt like the spirit of Percy Jackson but changed a few things, Episode 2 is almost a perfect reenactment of the book. Seriously, like the first 20 minutes are almost adapted exactly page for page. We begin with Percy semi-unconscious in the infirmary, with none other than Annabeth Chase standing over him. And her first line in the show is her first line from the book. You drool when you sleep.
You drool when you sleep.
When Percy next wakes, Grover is by his side, who confirms everything that happened was in fact not a dream. Now here's a slight difference from the book. In the book, Percy forgave Grover almost immediately, but here in the show, Percy definitely still has some resentment, but it's okay because this is going to pay off later on in the episode. We then get our first introduction to Mr. D, and he is absolutely flawless. From his first utterance of calling Percy, Peter Johnson.
Excuse me? I'm Percy Jackson. I'm new here.
Peter Johnson is here!
Okay. That isn't really my name.
And down to the Hawaiian shirt and can of Diet Coke, which is Mr. D's choice of beverage in the books. Mr. D messes with Percy, but Percy doesn't take it lying down. The typical Percy sass is captured perfectly by Walker. The two are then interrupted by Chiron, who takes Percy on a tour. And oh my gods, Camp Half-Blood is absolutely spectacular. Just from these couple seconds, we can already see so much of Camp Half-Blood. We have what I believe to be the big house in the distance, the stables, the canoe lake, the amphitheater, little fire pits along the pathway to offer food to the gods, the archery range, the lava climbing wall, and the strawberry fields. Completed with decorations of Greek marble statues, much like how it was depicted in the books. Behind Chiron, we can see banners of what I believe are representation of the gods. This one here has an arrow, most likely for Apollo or maybe Artemis, and this one has a lightning bolt, of course for Zeus. And there's one with a trident for Poseidon. When Percy finds out that his father has not claimed him, you can feel the hurt in Percy's voice.
Your father might claim you tomorrow. It might be next week. It might be...
Never. Even now, he still wants nothing to do with me.
Percy still doesn't belong until he meets Luke, who for the first time in Percy's life shows him compassion. Now, while episode 2 is almost a perfect reenactment, it's so much more than that. We get added scenes, including one where Grover visits the Council of Cloven Elders, something that didn't show up until book 4 of Percy Jackson. Plus, we also get our first look at a dryad. You can tell that Grover is upset that Percy is still mad at him. And I love that the first person Grover seeked comfort from is a dryad, from nature. Grover goes to visit the council and learns some useful information, which Grover takes to Mr. D and Chiron. When Grover enters, Mr. D and Chiron are playing Pinochle, a nod to the book as this was the game Mr. D plays when we first see him. Grover tells them that Sally Jackson isn't dead but kidnapped by Hades. Chiron and Mr. D already know this but forbade Grover from telling Percy. Percy has yet another dream of Kronos, and in this one we see a sandy pit collapse, which I believe is a nod to Tartarus. When Percy wakes up, Luke explains that bad dreams are normal for demigods, as is dyslexia and ADHD. Percy, for once, finally belongs. Everyone surrounding him is just like him. Luke and his brotherly aura are a highlight of the episode, but even better is Clarice. She is portrayed flawlessly, right down to her cargo shorts. Every second she's on screen, she steals the show. We're introduced to another unnamed character, Luke's friend, who isn't stated who exactly he is, but I believe is Chris Rodriguez. Chris and Luke take Percy through camp trying to find something Percy's good at. Archery and blacksmithing is definitely not it. But through Percy's disappointment, Luke is always there cheering him on. The connection between the two is really driven home, making what's to come all the more heartbreaking. A very touching moment is when Percy learns about burnt offerings to the gods. But instead of sacrificing to an unknown father, he burns some blue candy and talks to his mom, where Percy reveals that he's finally made some friends. And once again, Walker absolutely rips your heart out. However, the touching moment is short-lived when Percy is confronted by Clarice and her goons, who try to shove Percy's head in a toilet. But the toilet ends up exploding and dousing Clarice, who runs off. Now, one thing that is not a perfect adaptation from the book is how Annabeth is introduced the second time, but I think it's even better in the TV show. Annabeth shows up in the bathroom and admits to stalking Percy.
Are you stalking me, Annabeth? Yes. Okay.
And Half-Bloods, just the way Percy says Annabeth, why is that so perfect? Annabeth reveals that she wants to use Percy during Capture the Flag, revealing that she's always thinking ahead. And even though Annabeth has little screen time, Leah kills the performance. I can't really describe it, but just the way she delivers every line is so calculating, making you really think that Annabeth is always thinking 6 steps ahead, as put best by Luke here.
Annabeth sees the world differently, always 6 steps ahead of everyone else.
Luke then gives us some history about Annabeth and Thalia. Just the fact that the three traveled together and he and Annabeth made it to camp and Thalia did not. And also how Annabeth has been waiting for a chance to prove herself on a quest. And you can see in Percy's eyes that he understands the need to prove himself. This is something that repeatedly comes up in this episode. The theme of glory. How demigods crave it. The chance to prove themselves to their godly parents. Annabeth wants to prove herself to Athena. Luke wants to prove something. And Percy wants to make Poseidon notice him and stop ignoring him. And the way to achieve all these goals is through glory and success. Chiron then announces it's time for Capture the Flag. We get another scene between Annabeth and Percy, and the slight tension between them is so perfectly adapted from the book. I think sometimes we forget how cold and calculating Annabeth was in the beginning of The Lightning Thief. Percy opens up about the need to prove himself, and Annabeth is like, okay, good luck with that, bye, and then she pulls out her Yankees cap and turns invisible. The whole scene is so perfect, as is Percy's confrontation with Clarice. Percy is on the run until he makes it to the water and then turns things around, managing to break Clarice's spear. Before Clarice can do any real damage, Luke comes with the flag, claiming victory, and Annabeth reveals herself to Percy. Percy is rightly upset that she didn't help him, but Annabeth is just happy her plan worked and then pushes him in the lake. And Annabeth realizes what is about to happen before it even does, just like in the book. Percy is claimed a son of Poseidon and has gone from being surrounded to once again being alone as a forbidden child of the Big Three, as the 3 eldest gods swore not to have any more children. Chiron then reveals the plot of the show. Zeus's master bolt has been stolen, and Zeus blames Percy. Poseidon needs Percy to find it by the summer solstice, but just like in the book, Percy refuses to help his father, until Grover redeems himself and tells Percy that Sally is alive in the underworld, the exact place Percy needs to go for the quest. Only then does Percy agree.
When do we leave?
Episode 2 does such a fantastic job of introducing fan-favorite characters as well as establishing Camp Half-Blood, and it moves us through the plot very quickly but flawlessly. It never gets dull. It's witty, it's heartfelt, and it's filled with action. Campers, I give this episode a 10 out of 10. Let me know what you thought about it down below in the comments. But until episode 3, I'm signing off. So please, as always, demigods, remember to stay safe.